The petite lady, too busy to teach you a lesson about divorce. This is beyond me. I have no idea where to go. We have spent nearly 6 years together and nearly 3 years married. After just a year of marriage, I discovered last year that my wife had slept with someone else. I was intrigued and a little angry at the same time. Let's go back to 2 weeks ago, when my wife was assisting a friend in getting to work. There's something fishy about this. After she hadn't been home for about 3 months, I installed something on my computer and discovered that she had an affair in August of last year. It appeared as though a heart attack was about to come. We had a peaceful conversation about it, and I told her I was ready to forgive her because I had been so bad at showing affection for a long time. We only really bonded once every 2 months, if at all. I was primarily to blame. She continued to remain at her friend's house, though, and I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. When the time was right, I looked through her phone. Once more, I was correct. She was actually falling hard for this other guy, who turned out to be a jerk and had cheated on her. I lost it entirely. I just started screaming and cursing. Nothing violent. You understand the gist. They had several sexual encounters and had been conversing the entire time she was there. I brought it up, and now she's saying that she wants to resolve things with me. Yes, I do wish to resolve the issue. However, I find it impossible to shake the feelings of hatred and disdain I have for her. Here, a couple more variables come into play. 1. She bought him items worth thousands of my dollars, and I struggle to get the money I need each week. 2. It's possible that she got an STD, and the most crucial 3. She still doesn't seem to be truly regretting anything. She apologizes, but it doesn't satisfy me. 4. I pay all the bills, I'm pleasant and supportive, and the last man was a total jerk. Avoid casting too much shadows. Why not him? I need assistance getting over everything. I really do want to make things right, but I need to get past this. I'm certain I won't forget. I just need somewhere to discuss this with someone. In any case, I don't really think of the first as cheating. Well, sort of, but not really. She says she wants to make our marriage work. As do I get it. I contributed to the issue. She had often warned me that it would be problematic if we had sex without showing any emotion. Simply said, I haven't witnessed anything that approaches genuine remorse. I assured her that things would drastically alter and that if she wanted a jerk, I would provide it to her. It really doesn't matter if it's a girl or a guy, I suppose. It is unethical to cheat. I would like to know if there is any way that we can resolve this. In a roundabout manner, I know I'm mostly to blame for this. I adore her still. I didn't have the same level of sex drive as her. I suppose I'm waiting for her to have a breakdown and truly understand what she done. It hasn't actually occurred yet. Alternately, perhaps it has and I've missed it. I'm going out the door if nothing works. Still, I've brought her back home with me. She returned home and stayed after I told her about the first guy. I learned about the second around 10 days later. Although I am aware that I am creating excuses, I am attempting to console myself. I suppose. Why we weren't having sex is beyond me. My sex urge was non-existent. I have no idea why it was so horrible. She was still attractive to me, but I just wasn't interested in having sex with her. I don't know why, but after a performance I would really tell myself, well, don't have to do that again for another month. I know that sounds horrible. I want to know if my testosterone levels are low. In addition to the STD test, I also need to be tested. The only person working is me. Thus, every penny that comes in and goes out is for my labor. She attends school. After I confronted her after learning about the first guy, she lost it. And the day before I learned about the second guy, I broke down. She apologized repeatedly for hurting me. I inquired as to her preferred partner. She informed me that she knew she wanted me when I found out about the first guy. She made an attempt to discuss the lack of sex with me. I suppose I didn't strive to change or listen. I guess I was taking her for granted. I made that error. She said the second guy showed her love and care when I questioned her why. She hasn't touched the second guy financially since I confronted her about the first one. That, in my opinion, demonstrates some moderation, but not enough. I have asked her how she feels and just said how I feel, without pleading for my marriage. She says she'd like to resolve the issue. I overheard her telling a common acquaintance that she doesn't think she deserves me in a message. That might be accurate. She has been putting some effort into solving the issues. She is getting me checked out and scheduling appointments for STD testing. There won't be any more opportunities. Even though it was dishonest, I was more inclined to forgive the woman and woman situation. It was a fantasy, too. I'm giving up and throwing in the towel if this doesn't work. Though I don't want to give up just yet, I will if things don't get better very soon. I'm currently compiling a list of requests, such creating a bank account on my own and requesting that she not communicate with her boyfriend, and so forth. After 3 months, almost 3 months have passed since I learned of my wife's extramarital affair. Things are going well so far as we've been working on them. Instead of constantly putting her first, I've really taken the time to reflect on who I am and what I want. I've always seen of myself as a good man, so I didn't worry about who she was with and let her do anything she wanted, as well as her current location. Those times are long gone. I've become a little bit of a jealous person. Both good and bad periods come into our lives. Though I've moved on, I've not forgotten. She doesn't have my full trust. She is aware of this. To date, I believe that my two main issues are the triggers and the distrust. Even when there is nothing going on, I get the impression that my wife has more male friends than female friends since she has always had them. I want it to stop, and I've checked. Though perhaps I am asking too much, she is not putting as much effort into the marriage as I believe she should. She is not in communication with the OM. I have never been the kind to voice my opinions, but that has evolved. I tell her exactly what's on my mind at the moment, without holding anything back. I haven't yet lost it and started crying uncontrollably, which I am currently waiting for. My wife still has a lot of growing up to go, I've realized. Many of her enjoyable adolescent days were lost to her. Her father died when she was 17, and her mother passed away when she was 7. And up until my involvement, she had been taking care of herself. She now longs to go back to those times. She has improved as a result of my constant pressure for her to mature. My wife and I met when I worked as a club DJ, by the way. Unrelated to the affair, I no longer work there. One night when I wasn't performing, I went on the rampage. The OM was there, and I informed his roommates that if I saw him again, it would be on, and if they didn't like it, I would do the same for them. Do I feel proud of that? No, but I had to get that off my chest. At the time, I was inebriated and didn't give a damn what anyone thought. I find it bothersome that only 2 individuals approached me and placed the bird in my ear out of everyone who was aware of the event. Her family and friends are among the people who knew her, some of them even attended our wedding. They have also betrayed me, I feel. I believe they ought to have informed me if they were aware of what was happening. Finally, I just want to say that I still hurt a lot. I'm appreciative of my pals since I can confide in them and follow their counsel. I talked to my best friend after having a brief period of self-exasperation, and he informed me what I stood to lose. The friends I do have are genuine, even though I don't have many. Although I am still extremely stressed out all the time, things are improving daily. I was unaware of the first man. I was at a racetrack, and they had met at a bar. She went home with him after getting wasted with a few of her pals there. Although I had seen the second one, I knew nothing about him. None of the 20 guys she probably has as friends are close pals. She went to school with more people. Hardly ever does she see them. The majority of them I've known for at least 6 years. There's only one I don't trust right now. He spent years going in and out of jail. There hasn't been much communication with this individual. Why am I squandering my time? Because I care about her and I think there's a chance that things will turn out okay. In my opinion, a person's marriage shouldn't be abandoned when they make mistakes. I'll stay if there's a chance for reconciliation. After a year, if I still don't notice any progress, I'll know that I tried my hardest, but it was unsuccessful. There aren't any close man pals, as I mentioned. I believe that the majority of her male friends are trustworthy. I brought up the person I don't trust. She doesn't really spend a lot of time with these guys or really communicate with them frequently. She will strike up a conversation with them if she sees them in a store. I am well aware that the affairs were not my fault. I did put all the guilt for the affairs on myself when I initially learned about them. However, I can clearly understand that my lack of action is not the problem. I've admitted to her that, although I wasn't following my own instructions, it didn't mean I should have cheated. Had the situation been that dire, she ought to have filed for divorce. I am aware that she didn't enjoy her marriage. I was at blame for that. Intimacy was completely absent. She therefore made the incorrect decisions and filed for divorce rather than acting morally. She kept confiding in me about her problems, but I was blind to her misery. I was at blame for that. I am kind of relieved that things transpired as they did. As crazy as that may sound, I've never set boundaries and have always been overly kind. I can't be like that, I see now. In a sense, we are beginning anew. However, I don't trust anyone. I'm sorry, but this is no longer a fairy tale. It takes a lot of labor, but only if she makes an effort. I'll give it a shot then. It will be all right, at least in part, as long as things keep getting better. The marriage has reached its end if things start to go wrong once more. However, I can say that I tried my best and made a good attempt. After my wife's extramarital encounters for 4 years, I was attempting to heal. I was perhaps too naive and should have left at that point. So here I am once more. I apologize if this seems a little rambling. Since learning the most recent, I haven't gotten much sleep. To cut a long tale short, during the past few years or so, I have noticed a shift in my wife. She began going out frequently, binge drinking, and spending the entire evening out. She would frequently leave again only to return after noon the next day. Among the people she was hanging out with were those I knew, and I repeatedly confronted her about her adultery. She consistently disputed it. Her responses never really satisfied my thoughts. I discovered proof of her sexting another man, confronted her, and ended the conversation. She was also wasting money left and right on top of this. We spent more than 25% of our yearly salary on eBay purchases. She may also have undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, in my opinion. The lies were too much to take. I've been worried about this guy ever since the last time. Sometimes he would hang out with my wife's pals. Big time met a mistreatment victim. I repeatedly brought up this individual with the wife, but I never had any evidence. She consistently refuted any events ever occurring. I won't go into too much detail about how I discovered the evidence that they were having sex. But after learning for sure, among many other things, I made the decision that this marriage was ended at that very moment. I left right away. I want to make sure I don't make a mistake, which is why I haven't dropped the bomb just yet. I've been pretending to be happy and not moving out, creating the impression that everything is as it should be. I have a consultation with a lawyer scheduled for next week. Right now, I have $500 in my possession. I only had that because I withheld from my wife the money I earned from side gigs so she wouldn't squander it. After paying $150 for the consultation with the lawyer, I should be able to decide whether to file for an at-fault divorce or no error. It is quite tough in my state to establish adultery in court. Essentially, she would need to testify that she had an affair. I have a good feeling about the course of action the attorney will suggest. Neither should I be required to pay spousal support. I've been putting together a plan for property settlement, simply maintaining a running list of the things I desire. I couldn't decide if I should give up or keep fighting for whatever I can. I'm very confident I'll be trimming my losses, though, given my financial situation. I just cannot afford to spend a significant amount of money and perhaps receive nothing in return. But we'll talk about this with the attorney next week. I guess this is primarily a way to vent and get some frustration out. My thoughts are always racing. I'm upset with myself for wasting so much time on a one-sided partnership. I used to think she could do no wrong. I have endured continual criticism, emotional abuse, cheating, and complaints. She put the blame on me from the very first affair. She wasn't met by the fact that I was allegedly never home. I acknowledge that I occasionally put other people before her. Perhaps I did spend a lot of time on enjoyable pastimes when I was away from home. I always made an effort to recommend activities for her to enjoy and invited her to attend. Even when I gave up some of my hobbies to spend more time at home, it was never good enough. Either she was arguing all the time or she was glued to her computer, playing online games. I realize now that I wasn't getting what I needed. Why would someone want to play a game at home with someone who has been in a state of mental trance for 3 hours straight? Her complaints about sex were constant. Quantity, not quality. Never enough, and I would frequently attempt to take the lead. I wasn't romantic enough, though. One of her favorite quotes was, "Sex shouldn't be planned out." Yes, I'm just as happy having impromptu sex as the next person. However, it is not feasible to work more than 60 hours a week, come home, and immediately climb into bed. Have to get ready, take a shower, and these things require some planning. My thoughts are now going to the future. What does the future of partnerships hold for me? Can I ever trust anyone again? Will I sabotage a second romance? How can I take care of myself? I have severe issues with my self-esteem and have allowed myself to go over the past few years. I struggle with social anxiety. Maybe now I can focus on improving myself rather than attempting to please someone who showed me absolutely no empathy. It's time to start working out and hanging out with my buddies, whom my wife avoided in favor of her drama-loving friends of the week. She has really fled from all of her respectable pals over the past few years. Thank God, no children. I began to yearn for a child about 2 years ago. My friends were expecting their first children. That's one of the few thoughtful things Mom did for me. Despite my current desire for a child, I am relieved that we are not giving in to pressure to have one. She bought the house before we were ever acquainted. I never received the title. I am aware of this stupidity. Since I invested a lot of money and time on the house, I might still be eligible for a portion of the equity. The majority of the items in the house are completely useless and existed prior to my move-in. Very few things are on my want list. I honestly don't think I'll be fighting for much of this anyhow, as it will likely be the largest problem throughout the entire divorce. To be honest, there are only 10 or so things in the entire house that I truly want. I'll hold off to hear the attorney's response. Her maxing out credit card debt is another problem. This occurred while she was spending a lot of money on eBay. In the end, she made the choice to use credit counseling. It wasn't a great concept in my opinion, but whatever. Since her credit was stronger than mine at the time, I know she opened the cards in her name. After that, she gave me a card connected to that account. A couple lawyers I spoke with said they charged roughly the same. Based on a friend's recommendation, who recently went through a divorce herself, I chose this one. A part of me wants to watch her go broke and completely suffer, and another part of me simply wants to get out of here with the few things I desire and be done. The more I consider it, the more I wish that she will suffer greatly upon realizing how unstable her ways have become. I've said it before, but I'm pretty confident she has BPD, every single other indication that I observe. I have the strange impression that she'll paint it in too negative a light. Such sorrow. Moving on to the following one. I just cannot afford to take too long with it. The best I can aspire for would be an instantaneous at-fault divorce. A brief set-a-night update. What a weird day this has been. I could sense my codependency starting to flare up a little. I then turned back to my evidence and went through it once more, if nothing else, to incite a small amount of rage in order to persevere. In any case, I was much more attentive. Discovered 3 more instances of her cheating. 2 of these date back to the 6 months following our nuptials. I couldn't verify it, but I had a thought about one of them. I'm amazed, not angry or irritated at all. I have spent the previous few years blaming myself for a lot of the issues in our marriage. I married a serial cheater, it turns out. Better news, I have leads on 2 rental properties. My close pals have all offered their support. Everything from furnishings to moving assistance. I'm interested to see who will follow me after I depart. That is, our shared pals. That's all I have to say for now. Tomorrow I'm going to look at additional houses. I'm genuinely curious about a number of things regarding my relationship as a whole. If nothing else, I would really like to know if I made a mistake and how big it was to perhaps help in future relationships. My wife would always complain that I wasn't spending enough time at home when we first got married. I did dedicate roughly 20 hours a weekend to some of my hobbies. Roughly 6 months out of the year, 3 nights a week, a few hours each night, and every other set. Apart from this, I was in my house. She did not have a job and no interests of her own for the most part of this time. I attempted to help her discover a pastime. Online gaming was the only one she could find. Recall Candy Crush. I also attempted to pique her curiosity in my pastime. She told me she was interested in the same pastime while we were dating. However, she refused to participate once we were married. This, she says, is the reason she cheated. All well, so the marriage as a whole. She also said, and this is probably true, that I wasn't affectionate enough after we got married. I have never been a big lover of PDA. I suppose it's just that I think things belong in the bedroom. Not that I didn't give her a public kiss or hold her hand. I was rather uncomfortable making out in public. I would always kiss her cheek more than anything else. Really, when we went out, I didn't dance. She has been saying, among other things, that I didn't do the things I did to obtain her, similar to massaging her feet. She claims that when we were dating, I would constantly rub her feet. Really, I only did it once or twice a month. I'm not sure how that came about. I was always watching out for the house. In order to make sure we could get through a difficult time, I would try to earn a little additional money. Along with cooking and cleaning, I did my own laundry. She just needed to pay the bills and wash her own clothes. I started feeling resentful about it after doing everything else. She might do a single dishwasher load when I brought it up, and then get mad at me for not unloading it. I think I'd make a nice catch. I work hard, am dependable, and am honest. Yes, I most definitely struggle with affection. Kindly select my tale to learn about my other issues. Please be harsh with me, I think I need it. I believe there was a possibility of making amends. She sobbed and pleaded with me not to leave, saying she was sorry and that it would never occur again. I also believed that I was to blame for her adultery. Yes, it's foolish, I know. It took me a while to realize that there were 2 separate guys. They were just discovered concurrently by me. However, she had to see my proof before she would confess. It turns out that I recently discovered evidence of 2 other occurrences that occurred before these. She has probably cheated on me many times with 7 or 8 different individuals, at the least. I had no idea that she was a master manipulator and liar. She would complain that I wasn't spending enough time with her, even though I was spending well over 20 hours a week with her. I reduced my time away from home and increased my time spent at home. Remember those internet games? She played these games for at least 4 hours every night, and most of the time longer, as I sat there. It turns out that she really enjoyed that. She would also sleep for at least 12 hours every day, and on the weekends, she still does. She was asleep when I tried to include her on the weekends. I think she went twice when I invited her because she wanted to go out and drink with her buddies. It's okay, but she insisted that I go too. I got the impression that she was unwilling to compromise and just wanted things to go one way. She had to have her way or have no way. I will definitely be leaving her. In the past, I didn't because I thought there could be a chance. I firmly refused to put myself through the mental anguish this has caused me to endure in light of the most recent facts. It might have worked out if she had come honest and revealed everything right away. Gaslighting and the trickle truth really got to me. In addition, I think I have serious codependency issues. Even after everything she has done, I still want to support her. I have to forward with the divorce, separation. I have to push myself to finish it. I spoke with a lawyer today. Went incredibly great. He stated there shouldn't be any issues at all. I asked him if I might be charged with abandonment now that I had moved out. He replied that considering my circumstances, no court in their right mind would approve that. He added, I have to wait 12 months, and I'll give them $600 if I want a divorce. They gather the necessary documentation, deposition, and most likely avoid ever having to appear in court. Second tale. Regretfully, I find it hard to articulate my circumstances. After graduating from high school, my wife and I have been dating for more than 11 years, and we have been married for 2.5 years. We have a dog and purchased a house 3 years ago, and this autumn even became godparents to our friend's son. I've been aware for the past 15 days that my spouse is having an extramarital affair with one of her clients. She was once a counselor for abuse. I happened upon it after observing certain changes in my wife's behavior. When I first saw her, she was always carrying around her cell phone. She would go from room to room in the bathroom to take a shower, etc. She usually goes to bed and wakes up early, so she was staying up much later than usual. The most concerning thing I observed was how aloof she seemed to be. It was as though I wasn't even there. When I eventually got a chance to look through her phone a few days later, I discovered some unsettling texts she had sent to a number that wasn't on it. It was implied that she had spent time with them and that she was missing them. When I challenged her about them, she claimed that it was just entertainment and that nothing was happening. She turned the conversation around on me, saying that she was uncomfortable because I've been too comfortable, and that she felt like she was treading carefully around me when I pressed the subject and demanded answers. I tried to ignore her comment regarding the texts, taking it at its value. In addition, I made an effort to modify the way I handled some of the concerns she raised. Sadly, after a few days I had had enough and checked our cell phone account to see how much and for how long she had been texting this individual. She declined to identify the person. She has been communicating with them for more than 2 months, and the past 3 weeks have seen a noticeable increase, so what I discovered really shocked me. I chose to look up the phone number she was messaging, although at the time, I thought the information I found was strange. Things didn't really change throughout the course of the week, so I couldn't resist checking that history. Usually everything seemed alright, but she would really go there when she would say she had to work late. She doesn't smoke, but when she would come home, she would smell like cigarettes, and she couldn't manage to be around it without having a migraine. Throughout it all, I tried to be lenient with her, possibly because I was in denial and wanted to believe her when she said it was nothing. I had essentially worked out when she had visited this individual and verified that it was, in fact, one of her clients. I approached her after about a week of this, asking her why she was messaging this person so frequently and identifying them. Once more, she declined to discuss anything and persisted in trying to pin it back on me. When I first brought it up, she had already left the house to go visit her mother since I had mentioned what I had seen. I took what she was saying, or not saying, for what I wanted it to be and attempted to see if anything would change, but I turned around and came back again. Stupid me. I gave it another go a week later, but this time I approached it with the knowledge that you are seeing and chatting to someone else behind my back. She persisted in denying everything and calling it insignificant, and it led to a major altercation. She really broke me even more when she said, at the end of the battle, that she didn't know what she wanted anymore, including whether or not she wanted to get married. I felt completely defeated and was unable to go to work the following day. I went from being depressed to being furious and prepared to attack at the slightest thing when she got home from work, but she was behaving like everything was all right. I attempted to accept this as a harbinger of good things to come. Regretfully, I've come to understand that it was essentially a facade. After another week, she has to travel to Atlantic City for a work conference. I wasn't expecting her to return home until after supper because it was an all-day event. She hadn't spent time with the individual for 2 weeks at this point, so I was beginning to feel better about things. All they were doing was conversing. We exchanged texts all day long, but I had a hunch that she would stop by there on her way home from the conference. Attempting to play it safe, she claimed that she and a colleague had gone out to dinner following the conference, followed by shopping and gambling. I had no choice but to wait for her to get home at this point. When she finally did, she changed into new clothing in the bedroom, immediately proceeded to the bathroom to wash her face, and basically went straight to bed. She had gone there, I discovered, and had lied to me about when they had left AC. I asked her what we were doing to ourselves at this point. We had not spoken about anything in a week and things were left very vaguely. I probed more, asking where she was, keeping in mind that the coworker she went with was also in recovery and didn't gamble. That is, they refrained from gambling later. I persisted in pressing her even as she insisted there was nothing more going on. At last, she blurted out that she had been thinking for some time that she no longer wanted to be married. I attempted to have a longer conversation with her about that, but all she did was go to bed in the guest room. She wakes up the following day and everything seems to have happened the night before. I made the decision to leave the house at this moment and go for a drive. I told you before I went that we needed to talk about our problems and that whatever was going on needed to end. I advised her to cease meeting or speaking with someone else, and we should carefully consider our options moving forward. She mentioned little more than that she was single. She contacted me while I was gone for a few hours, telling me that she would see me for dinner later since she had to head into work for a little time. We had a group of buddies heading out with us. We spent the remainder of the weekend together, and it turned out to be exactly what it was. She stated that she wanted time and space to come to her own conclusions on Monday morning before heading out for work. I told her that I was cool with anything that got her to talk about this stuff, but she had to be honest. She continues to speak with the individual after another week, and it's killing me. She goes there again, and I'm growing angrier and irritated. She informs me that after working till 2, she had to see her grandma and then proceed to another office. I knew my grandma saw this guy, but I couldn't really doubt the fact that she was ill, and finally stated, "You are lying to me in seeing this guy," and I pulled out his name on Monday of the next week. She was surprised that I was aware of his identity and that he was a customer of hers. She refuted the existence of any affair and the fact that he was even her customer. At last, she acknowledged that she had been lying to me about who she was talking to and that she sometimes didn't get home from work until later. I followed up, but it didn't work out. We attempted to discuss it after she reiterated her earlier statement that she no longer wanted to be married. We agreed in the conclusion that we would try to resolve our differences, but we would need to discuss it further the following day. She changed her mind and claimed she wanted out when we chatted the following day. I asked her whether she wanted to be with any other person, or one of her clients. Next, proceed. She stayed put and continued to insist that it wasn't her customer. We truly came back to the point where we both needed to reflect on our needs and desires for our relationship as a result of my pushing. It had been a week since our conversation about everything last night. We've been essentially living together for the past week, and she appears to be okay with that. I'm tormenting myself in the hopes that she would change her mind. We have a trip planned for the end of May, so I'm trying to convince her to work on things up to then, and then we can see how things stand. As I've already stated, given our current state of uncertainty, I'm not sure if it's best for us to be leaving. She is unaware of how much I know about things. Because of where she works and the fact that their meetings seem to be last minute, it's difficult for me to try to catch her in the act of seeing the guy. I want to try and make things right with her in spite of everything, but I'm not sure if that's still possible. She's risking her job by even hanging out with this guy, who isn't exactly a model citizen, so I'm worried about her. Since I essentially let it to get to this point, I feel like a sucker about the whole thing. It also kills me because, until I spotted her acting differently, everything seemed to be going well with us. I'm unsure of what to do after that. Thoughts: I've been vacillating between doing nothing and nothing. Undoubtedly been in a state of limbo, which I contributed to by failing to adopt a more assertive posture early on. I never had a reason not to believe her, so I wanted to believe everything she said. Actually, I was living in denial. I'm currently attempting to determine how to approach her directly about what she's doing to me and eventually us. But I also believe that turning 180 degrees is the right course of action. Is there, if any, a happy medium between confrontation and compromise? Taking her out by force, doing the 180, or choosing the opposite? I'm tired of being the doormat, even though I don't think anyone enjoys it when it occurs to them. All I have to do now is figure out how to manage it the best manner possible for me. Update: I spoke with my wife about it. I told her that I couldn't keep living this way and that all I wanted for her was to be happy. I deserve better than that, and I'm sick of her lying and treachery. I told her she had to move out or go to North Carolina. My line was drawn in the sand. She sat there, expressionless. I made an effort not to press for clarification, but I was powerless. She remained silent, just stating that since I presumably already knew everything, there was no reason for her to speak. At this moment, I'm not sure how feasible reconciliation is in practice. I have no control over that. My comment: reconciliation is not really possible, and it is also obviously beyond your power. It's her choice. She has always owned it. She makes it very evident that she no longer wants to be with you. Put her to the side and move on since you are getting a divorce. You won't go anywhere by hatching schemes to try and get her fired or to end the affair. They will just cause you great financial hardship and make you give up on getting a civil divorce. Additionally, there's a strong likelihood that you will continue sending her a support check each month for many years to come if